Now, most people think that the solution to their energy crash is to avoid food, to fast till afternoon, to avoid bread, but the real reason is that they have leaky gut. And today I'm going to show you exactly how you can fix this in under 2 weeks with one very simple protocol. Now, my name is Albertus De Haan, pharmaceutical scientist and founder of Pinnacle Health Systems, where we help entrepreneurs become the absolute best. And today I'm going to show you exactly how we helped this client resolve his leaky gut. Now, what you see right here is essentially a GI map, a test where we analyzed its stool. And what we found is that we saw elevated levels of sonulin, which is a marker which is being put into the bloodstream and the stool once the gut cells are basically leaky. Now, what were the symptoms this person experienced when he had leaky gut? So basically, every time he ate specifically carbs or any other food for that matter, he immediately got brain fog, energy crashes, he couldn't focus after any meal. He had energy crashes always within 12 and 2, even though his sleep was well, even though he ate particularly clean. Now, within 2 weeks, after running our simple protocol, we were able to completely reverse this. His energy was stable, his energy was high, he had no energy crashes throughout the day. And that is exactly what I have been struggling as well. Now, here on the left, you can see me where I looked okay, but I had constant fatigue. I had energy crashes after every meal. Being able to just focus after having lunch was almost impossible without also relying on boatloads of caffeine. And here, after dialing in my gut health, after optimizing and fixing my leaky gut, my libido was through the roof. I was able to pack on so much more muscle, but most importantly, I could focus and be energized the entire day. So, what we are going to do, and this is something I run with any client, is we are going to the 5R method. This is a gut healing protocol based on functional medicine. So the first part is going to be remove, where we want to remove everything which is keeping our gut from actually recovering. Then we want to restore the processes which naturally make up our digestion. Then thirdly, we want to repair it. So we want to basically help our body repair. Fourthly, we want to re-inoculate. So meaning we want to bring back the good stuff. And fifth, we want to rebalance. So we want to bring back the balance so our body and gut can still remain resilient, meaning that you won't be affected by this in the future. Or for example, when you do have a night out or a meal which isn't optimal, or literally go to McDonald's, that you just don't fall back and that your gut stays strong. So let's dive in. So the first R is remove. So again, what you need to understand here is that your body naturally wants to heal, but it is continuously putting out fires. So if your body is not able to get rid of the trash quick enough, then it continuously is stuck in this cycle and can never actually repair itself, because it does want to repair itself. So the number one thing you want to avoid in almost any cases is fried foods. So fried foods are always high in oxidized fat, inflammatory compounds, and they always irritate the gut lining. Now, I do not want you to make a distinction between fried food in olive oil, in coconut oil, in beef tallow, lard, whatever. Any fried food is prone to be oxidized and having inflammatory compounds. Because first of all, you don't even know how well the restaurant, for example, you're consuming these foods, is taking care of their hygiene. Are they actually replacing the fats every day? Are they using the highest quality ingredients to create the crusted fried foods? Most often than not, it's not the case. The oils are old, the food is bad. So overall, avoiding fried food is one of the most important things you can do to reduce inflammatory load on your gut. Then secondly, factory farmed meat. So basically any meat which to be honest, today is a lot. Like 95, if not more, percent of the meat which is being produced and you can buy in the supermarket comes from factory farmed animals. Think of pork, think of cows, think of chicken, and even the fish and shrimp. So if you want to reduce the inflammatory load and also omega-6 fat and residues from antibiotics and poor feed quality, you want to avoid consuming factory farmed meat as much as possible. In general, by the way, consuming pork is almost one of the worst things you can do, since I think more than 99% of pork is being produced in the absolute worst quality environments. Like, think about it. If you put humans in a very crowded space, what happens? Humans get sick. What do you think happens to animals? The same thing happens. So the reason that there are so many antibiotics and all of that stuff present in these animals is because if they don't get these antibiotics, they literally get sick and they die, right? It's the same in humans. So skip eating factory farmed meat as much as possible. And then thirdly, and this one should be very obvious and you should know this by now, but if you're still doing this on a day-to-day basis, then you're just sabotaging your own health, is ultra processed foods. Now, I don't have to go into too much depth here. You really should know that eating anything which has been processed so many times, which is basically not even comparable to a natural source, should not be consumed if you want to become the absolute best version of yourself. Now, this is the first step, remove. Then secondly, we go dive in restore. So one thing we want to know and you need to understand is that your body naturally wants to kill and process everything it consumes, right? So our mouth helps with already pre-chewing food. It produces saliva, which already processes some of the food. And then it goes down through your esophagus into your stomach, where the acid is in charge of literally killing viruses, bacteria, and parasites as much as possible, because these ones are intruders and are not beneficial to our health. So then it comes to the pancreas, and the pancreas basically excretes enzymes which help the small intestines and large intestines being prepared for the food. Simultaneously, the gallbladder excretes acids, which then moreover in combination with the pancreas still helps with processing the food and making it more digestible. And overall, our entire digestive system is created to kill and process anything which should not be there and basically help them absorb all the food which is there. So in this phase, the one thing we need to do is to restore this system, right? Because for most people, and even for my client, we saw that his gallbladder and the pancreas were not performing optimally, meaning that food was left unprocessed, which then causes fermentation, or it leads to opportunistic bacteria or viruses or even parasites to basically wreak havoc and cause leaky gut, and therefore that leads to your energy crashes, which basically prevents you from performing at the best level. So how do I actually restore this? It's going to be very simple. For your stomach, it is going to be your stomach. So for your stomach, it's going to be lemon and apple cider vinegar. Then for your pancreas, we want to consume ginger or ginger root extract and also apple cider vinegar. For your gallbladder, it's going to be lemon, it's going to be dandelion or arugula, and to support motility, it's going to be ginger root and walking. But overall, one of the most important things you must focus on right here is that you activate your parasympathetic nervous system. So often nowadays, guys and entrepreneurs and anyone for that matter are eating in a distracted fashion, right? So they are consuming their food while they're also writing some emails and they're listening to a podcast. And this way your body is activated. Now, the beautiful thing about the parasympathetic nervous system is that once you are in a parasympathetic state, your digestion automatically activates because literally the sight of food, the smell of food activates your digestive tract. But if you are distracted, your digestive system is also distracted. So getting into a parasympathetic state is one of the most important things you can do for consumption of food. Now, very simple way to do this is literally eat without distractions. Take some small deep breaths, like 1 to 4 deep breaths before any meal, or literally shoot a prayer, which my parents did back in the day, which actually is one of the best things you can do before you have any meal. And I can guarantee you, if you combine that with, for example, a tea made with lemon, a splash of apple cider vinegar, a fresh ginger, some dandelion, bro, you are going to be an absolute machine. So that is 2. Then let's move on to part 3. How are we now actually going to repair the gut lining, right? Because what leaky gut essentially is that, as you guessed it, there is a leak, right? Stuff can leak into our body, which is causing the energy crash, which is causing the brain fog, which is causing you not being able to focus after any meal, and therefore you just think, okay, let me just avoid food, let me just fast till noon to be able to work. Now, your body naturally wants to keep away food and disease from its body, and therefore it has built up a very strong barrier. Now, what we see right here is on the left a healthy gut, right? On the left you can see that these gut lining cells are essentially very tight, meaning that nothing can go through, nothing can enter the blood barrier, right? But on the right, you see that these cells have deteriorated. They have lost their strength. There are gaps in between, and now pathogens and even food particles can enter the bloodstream. And you know what's also funny? This then can also lead to you having all sorts of intolerances. All of a sudden you get issues with eating eggs. All of a sudden you are getting allergies. All of a sudden you can't drink milk anymore because your body is creating defense mechanisms against these food particles. But if you got a strong gut, that's not the case. So how can we restore this, like this dying cells, back to the healthy version where you can essentially eat anything you want without having to worry about getting an energy crash, without having to worry about not being able to focus? So very simple stuff. And this is the exact protocol I used with my client to get fixed the leaky gut within 2 weeks. First of all, it's a supplement called L-glutamine. Now, L-glutamine serves as the primary fuel source for these intestinal lining cells, supporting the tight junction integrity and reducing intestinal permeability, promoting regeneration of the gut lining. In very simple terms, this means that the actual cells we were depicted here are getting fuel, which makes them stronger, which makes them work together, and it restores this integrity. Now, what you want to supplement with is around 10 to 15 grams of L-glutamine. Obviously start with a smaller doses, like 5 grams, to see if there are no adverse effects, and then gradually build it up to 10 to 15 grams per day, ideally taken in the morning. Then secondly, you want to supplement with zinc carnosine. So now this also then supports the gut lining, it repairs and it enhances mucosal integrity. So what is mucosa? So as you can see here, mucosa is essentially a layer of mucus surrounding these cells, which acts as a secondary barrier, preventing pathogens and bacteria from entering and getting near to these cells. So that's a very important defensive layer which helps our gut staying healthy. Now, taking around 75 milligrams in the morning and at night is the most optimal you can do. This overall helps with regenerating the cells and reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. Now, the GOAT here is colostrum, specifically goat colostrum. Now, combining zinc carnosine and colostrum has been found in up to 85% of the cases to improve the gut lining integrity. So by consuming zinc carnosine and colostrum and L-glutamine, in 85% of the cases, leaky gut was completely reversed. And this is exactly how we done that with one of our clients within 2 weeks. Because colostrum is one of the strongest, most potent sources of milk, because that just is drawn like within the first days after a mom gives birth. And some small side hack, goat's milk in general is way better than cow's milk. If we draw comparisons between human milk and any milk from the animal kingdom, we see that goat's milk is the most comparable. Cow's milk, on the other hand, is the 8th most comparable. So if you can make a decision on getting colostrum, always prefer goat's colostrum if possible. So this is 3. Then 4, after we have repaired the leaky gut, after we have repaired the gut lining and your gut is strong again, you want to make it even stronger, because again, it's very annoying that once you go out, or let's say you go to abroad and you get a stomach flu, that all of a sudden afterwards you're more prone to illnesses or you fall back. And that is something we want to prevent. We want to create the absolute best version of yourself, which is also very resilient and able to endure life, right? You should be able to consume shitty foods every once in a while without falling back, without worrying that your health will take a big hit. So the 4th one is renoculate. We want to make our gut even stronger, right? And this is exactly what our gut wants, because a lot of studies have actually found, which focused on cognition in older adults, that the ones who had the highest alpha diversity were able to focus and have energy and have improved cognition compared to the ones who have lower alpha diversity. Now, what makes up alpha diversity? Which is the variability of different gut bacteria in your digestive system. Meaning, the more good gut bacteria you have, the better your cognition is going to be now, but specifically also later on in your life, right? Which is the most important thing you want to focus on. So what you want to do to support a high alpha index is to consume a variability of foods, fruit and vegetables. Now, the easiest ways to do this, and literally this should actually be common knowledge, but nowadays people I think forgot this, is going to farmers markets and eating local and seasonal fruit and vegetables. Because if you do so, every month you will consume different fruit and vegetables based on the seasons, right? So if you do that, that is one of the biggest levers you can pull to increase the amount of good gut bacteria you consume. Then secondly, suppose let's say you live in a food desert in the United States and this might not be that present, you can then supplement or aid with extra more powerful compounds named probiotics. In general, I actually just advise to combine these two things because then you will become an absolute menace. So one is kefir. Kefir is one of the strongest versions of probiotic you can consume. And most people actually think that their yogurt, their daily dairy is going to do the trick, their raw milk is going to do the trick, but that's absolutely false because in research we have seen that if you consume, let's say yogurt or milk, there is no meaningful difference in the variability of good gut bacteria after, for example, a month, because again, our digestive system wants to kill them, right? So if you're consuming a yogurt which has bacteria, but the amount of the bacteria is very low, most of that bacteria is literally just being killed in the stomach and never actually reaches your gut. So you want to consume probiotics, sources of food which have a very high amount of bacteria which survives the stomach acid and then can actually settle in your gut. So kefir is a very good source. Ideally consume it once per day. Sauerkraut or any other fermented vegetables like kimchi is a very good source. Or if you are traveling and which is something I'm currently doing as well, is taking a actual probiotic supplement, and ideally you always want to aim for one which has more than 10,000 billion CFU, which stands for the active alive bacteria in this supplement. Because in science, we have seen that if the dosage is higher than 10 billion CFU, there is a meaningful difference in the amount of bacteria present in your gut after taking this treatment. So this will then help you create a stronger gut overall, preventing you from falling back and basically having stable high energy now and in the future. And literally again, studies found over and over again that the higher and the better your gut health is, the better your cognition will be now and in the future. And then lastly, and obviously is one of the most important ones, is that your body naturally wants to reproduce. Meaning we have two purposes in life. One is don't die, or at least for the majority of it. And secondly is to reproduce, to make babies. But if your body is not able to reproduce, or you don't have the desire to reproduce, fundamentally there's actually something wrong, which often can stem from your gut health. So don't be surprised if after optimizing your gut health, all of a sudden you become way more horny, which is often a side effect I hear from one of my clients, which I believe is very funny, and I notice this myself a lot of well. So how do you actually then do this? How do you bring back the peace to your body so we stimulate this desire? Is first of all just have consistency in meal timing, and overall just consistency in your life. So our body is built on routines. Our brain is basically very lazy and wants to create pathways to make its life as easy as possible, which means that the more consistent you can be in whenever you're eating your meals, whenever you're doing your workouts, whenever you wake up, whenever you go to bed, the better your body will function overall, right? So secondly, circadian alignment. So this one basically just means get your morning sunlight, right? So get outside. Let's say if there's one difference between 100 years ago and now, is that 100 years ago we spent 90% of the time outside versus 90% of the time inside nowadays. So secondly, have some daily activity and mindfulness. One of the most important things also for your gut health is to get your daily steps in, and to also get away from the screen, get away from social media, breathe in some air, look at nature. Like reducing the stress is one of the biggest levers you can pull for your gut health, because there's a thing called the vagus nerve, which is a literal nerve connecting your gut to your brain, right? And if you are very stressed, this can then literally affect your digestive health, and also then indirectly make leaky gut worse. So mindfulness is very important. And then obviously sleep optimization, right? If you're not waking up restored in the morning, then there is a lot of improvement for you to gain. So optimize your sleep. Now, once you do this correctly, what you will expect is that you'll have less bloating after meals. You will have less brain fog after meals, less energy crashes, way more stable digestion, and your cravings will disappear. And this will then all lead to better nutrient absorption, your capacity to build more muscle and lose fat, improve sleep, higher energy and libido, and your ability to stay focused and sharp, and overall have a higher cognitive speed and processing compared to the ones who are still dealing with leaky gut and are still fasting till afternoon, because every time they eat a meal, they crash. Now, over the last couple of years, I've helped 30 plus founders become absolutely unstoppable. We have doubled their testosterone, but most importantly, we have enabled them to be able to focus from morning till night while literally becoming the absolute best version of themselves. Now, if this is something you want, and you want to leverage every aspect of health to literally get to the top, to not compete with the amateurs anymore, but compete with the Ironman of the business world in terms of health, then click the link in the description, and we will have a one-on-one call where we will look at where you are leaking your performance.